CEO demands the real genius you want to believe who stepped forward to transform everything. Jamie Thompson's heart raced as she processed the CEO's words. Real genius, people. His booming voice echoed against the sleek, glass walls of their agency, a titan towering above the sea of hunched shoulders and furrowed brows. Her fingers gripped the edge of her desk, her refuge in this cacophony. Each drumbeat of her pulse mirrored the tension twisting in her gut, a mix of dread and desperation. Around her, colleagues leaned in, eyes glimmering with raw ambition as they whispered, plotting their rise within this unforgiving corporate jungle. Privileged, connected, they seemed to glide effortlessly. Jamie fought back self-doubt as she silently scrolled through her ideas, the vibrant passion of her campaigns reduced to muffled echoes. Thoughts intruded. Why do I even bother? The sacrifices her father endured as a retired bus driver, the late nights spent nurturing her talent, felt trivial against the backdrop of the agency's elite. Would her creativity ever shine through that glass ceiling, or was she destined to remain invisible? An awkward silence hung in the air as the tension grew thicker. Jamie's mind raced, her breath caught in the cycle of fear and frustration. What could she possibly offer in a room that craved revolutionary genius? She longed to claim her voice but felt suffocated by those who held cards she didn't even know existed. With each tick of the clock, uncertainty spiraled deeper. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mark's unexpected arrival felt like a lifeline thrown into her turbulent sea. His face, once bright with dreams, was shadowed by the weight of loss and regret. Jamie felt a fierce rush of nostalgia mixed with worry. They were children with stars in their eyes back then, navigating playgrounds, sharing aspirations. Now, Mark's ambition lay dulled and encumbered by grief. Why did he have to come back now? Hadn't she already enough on her plate? The tension crackled as they danced around their past, piecing together the friendship as Mark shared his vision, igniting flickers of her own buried creativity. Yet as sparks flew, subtle conflicts emerged. When Mark spoke of innovation, the urgency in his voice pierced through her. His words beckoned her to recognize the tension pulling at her loyalties, her father's work, the values instilled within her, against the allure of glory and the very ambition that felt tainted next to Mark's circumstances. They were tethered by shared struggles, yet their paths twisted into complicated turns. Time slipped away as Jamie stared down at her initial proposals for the new campaign, nothing but drafts and potential stifled by fear. Suddenly, everything felt at stake. As she prepared to present her final concept, she could almost hear her father's guiding whispers urging her on. Yet looming uncertainties clouded her thoughts, and as she stood to speak, she could feel the air thicken around her. Would she betray her roots for recognition? Would she risk everything, including her renewed bond with Mark? In that charged moment, the unthinkable collided with her imagination. An unsettling realization emerged. If she bore open her soul through this campaign, she could unveil a truth that linked her to the agency in ways she had never anticipated. It could either liberate her or utterly destroy everything. The room felt electric with potential and danger. As all eyes turned toward her, Jamie stood at the edge of transformation, torn between past loyalties and the promise of authenticity in a world that thrived on superficial connections. The stakes had never been higher. The choice lay heavy as she prepared to step forward, uncertain of the outcome but resolute in the need to be seen. Jamie inhaled deeply, her chest swelling as she fought against the tightness in her throat. The moment stretched infinitely, the room pulsating with expectation. She cleared her mind of the cacophony of doubts threatening to drown her voice. This time, she wouldn't allow her insecurities to hold her captive. Her gaze flickered to Mark, a silent plea for reinforcement. He nodded slightly, the faintest hint of encouragement in his eyes, urging her forward. This campaign isn't just about selling a product, it's about evoking a shared human experience, she began, her voice steady despite the knots forming in her stomach. Images flooded her mind, her childhood, her dad, those endless summers filled with creativity and hope. Tentatively, she shared her concept, a project that tapped deeply into emotional narratives, connecting their brand to the individual journeys of their consumers, yet, as her thoughts spilled forth, a nagging voice within her questioned the authenticity of her motives. Was she genuinely honoring her past, or merely exploiting it for professional gain? This tension twisted like a vice, tightening around her conviction. Jamie pressed on, each word a defiance against the self-doubt that had shackled her for too long. As she spoke, she saw her colleagues' expressions shift from initial skepticism to intrigue. It was intoxicating, exhilarating even, as she delved into the core of what it meant to truly connect with an audience. She could hear snippets of her father's wisdom echoing in her thoughts. Tell your story, Jamie. It's the one thing no one can take from you. But then came the backlash. Emotion is fine, Jamie, but does it really sell? A senior executive challenged, arched brow peppered with condescension. The room buzzed, tension cutting through her narrative like a knife. Her mind raced, instinctively wanting to retreat into the safety of her desk, into the familiarity of silence. No, came a sudden burning resolve. She realized the truth, the campaign was not merely a pitch, it was a reflection of her. Our brand has to be genuine to resonate. If we aren't authentic in our storytelling, we risk losing our audience. This isn't just about numbers, it's about connection, building trust. The fire ignited once more, illuminating her path through the dim shadows of fear, yet Jamie's honesty was met with mixed reactions. While some eyes lit up with eager understanding, others narrowed in doubt. It was uneven terrain, her words had struck a chord but also ruffled feathers. Still, there she stood at that precipice of pushing back against the rigid confines of the corporate machine, unshaken by dissenting views. She finished her pitch, breathing as though she had never dared to breathe before. At that moment, each heartbeat was a declaration of her identity, an affirmation of her worth beyond the confines of her title or past. Thank you, Jamie, the CEO said, leaning back, assessing her carefully. The silence stretched and felt heavy, a question lingering in the air. Jamie's heart hammered in anticipation. Had she crossed a threshold or merely dug her own grave? Back at her desk, anxiety swirled alongside a burgeoning sense of accomplishment. Yet, beneath the surface of triumph lay uncertainty. Would she be seen for the innovator she aspired to be, or would she become a cautionary tale in the hierarchy of this corporate jungle? The moment of reckoning felt imminent, and with it, an unexpected knot of unease tightened. There was still Mark, lurking in the corner of her mind, his earlier enthusiasm now juxtaposed against her delicate vulnerability. Suddenly, she remembered their shared childhood dream, the fearless duo yearning to change the world together. I need to reach out to him, she thought, realizing that their connection might be the key to navigating the storm ahead. Then came a chilling realization. If she committed to this path of authenticity, it could challenge everything she had ever valued, and possibly her relationship with Mark. Was she truly ready to embrace the potential repercussions of her choice? With the weight of the unknown before her, Jamie felt the stirring flame of purpose ignite once more. The next move was hers alone. How far was she willing to go, not just for her career but for her very essence? As she braced herself, she understood that the upcoming days would demand profound choices, ones that could reshape her identity, and so, she took a moment to exhale, watching the streams of thoughts collide, knowing that the real challenge was yet to come. The question lingered like a shadow: could she withstand the surge of authenticity without losing herself in the process? Jamie sat at her desk, fingers tapping a restless rhythm on her laptop, her mind spiraling through possibility and doubt. After the pitch, she felt a spark of transformation flickering within her, but the flicker also cast shadows of uncertainty. The mixed responses from her colleagues replayed in her head, encouragement from some, skepticism from others. In the corporate landscape, unpredictability was a given, but she had stirred a pot that had long lain dormant. Drawing in a deep breath, she forced her focus onto her next steps. Would she reach out to Mark today? She appreciated their history, their camaraderie, but the chasm between their worlds had widened since high school. He seemed to float effortlessly in the sphere of creativity, while she remained anchored to her corporate role, glancing at innovation through a glass wall. It was time to break that shore. Just call him, she whispered to herself, the words hanging in the air. The very act felt monumental, an admission that she needed him to navigate this new path, this struggle for authenticity that had ignited within her. With trembling fingers, she typed out the message, articulating her aspiration to collaborate again. The seconds stretched as she hesitated, weighing the consequences of reaching for something that might not be there anymore. What if Mark had moved beyond their shared dreams? What if their bond faltered under the strain of her ambitions? In the midst of her inner turmoil, her phone buzzed. A response from Mark appeared almost immediately. Let's talk tonight. I'm curious about what you've been up to. Her heart soared. This conversation could change everything. The hours stretched as she prepared, scribbling notes and organizing her thoughts. She felt the weight of her past clashing with her present ambitions. The authenticity she craved, was it truly divergent from what Mark was doing? By stepping outside her comfort zone, could she finally bridge that gap? As evening approached, Jamie set up the meeting at their favorite cafe. Arriving early, she soaked in the ambient's soft chatter, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, and the faint sound of jazz setting a relaxed backdrop. Yet, the certainty that had accompanied her earlier began to wane. What if she revealed too much? What if she fell short of Mark's expectations? When he arrived, it was as if time rewound. Mark emanated the same effervescence, an infectious enthusiasm illuminating his features. They embraced, and for a moment, the warmth of their shared history enveloped them. As they settled into conversation, Jamie could see the changes in Mark's demeanor. A confidence radiated from him that felt slightly out of reach for her now. She shared her recent experiences, the pitch, the struggle for authenticity, her fears and dreams. Mark listened attentively, nodding along with a knowing smile. I always knew you had it in you, he said gently after she finished. So why are you questioning yourself now? His question rifled through her defenses, exposing her vulnerabilities. Jamie hesitated, grappling with a raw honesty that felt terrifying yet liberating. Because I'm afraid of losing what I know, this role in the corporate world that has defined me for so long. I don't want to lose you, either. You're the very essence of creativity I feared I'd left behind. Mark's expression softened, an understanding broke across his face. You won't lose me, Jamie. Their conversation continued, layers peeling away, revealing aspirations and unspoken dreams shared under stars long ago. As they spoke, Jamie felt the embers of her purpose sparking brighter. Mark's insights brought clarity. Perhaps collaboration would do more than rekindle their shared ambitions, it could forge a path towards something new entirely. She proposed revisiting their childhood project, capitalizing on her corporate experience and his creativity. As excitement danced in Mark's eyes, Jamie felt the weight of her fears lift, replaced by the thrill of rediscovery. However, the evening spiraled awkwardly when Mark's next words jolted her back to reality. But wait. What if your company doesn't tee back this direction? His doubt shook her, yet instead of recoiling, Jamie recognized it as the true test of her resolve. Would she dare to confront her superiors again, fighting for their joint vision with everything she had? How much of herself was she willing to claim amidst the challenges of authenticity? As they cleared the remnants of their conversation, Jamie felt a shift, an understanding that to embrace this newfound authenticity, she would have to embrace confrontation too. This time, there would be no retreat. With a new resolve surging through her, she left the cafe, a plan forming in her mind. She had to approach the executives again, face them openly with her vision for this campaign, and risk it all. Could she muster the courage to face potential rejection or backlash for the sake of not just her career but her very identity? The stakes were high, and Jamie knew the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. But she felt an electric thrill. This was more than just about the work. It was about forging her future. The moment of truth was approaching, and as she pulled out her phone to draft an email, a trembling anticipation surged within her. Would she take a stand by weaving together her past with her aspirations? It was an uncertain future, but she was ready to find out. The time had come for Jamie to confront her reality head-on, and nothing could hold her back now. The morning sun filtered through the blinds as Jamie sat at her desk, determination solidifying into a tangible force within her. The plan she had formed last night pulsed in her mind, the urgency of it tight against her chest. She had decided the time for half measures was over. Today, she would approach her superiors, armed with her vision and fortified by her conversation with Mark. Her fingers lingered on the keyboard, drafting an email that would serve as her self-declaration. She hesitated, not from doubt, but from the clarity of what was at stake. This wasn't merely an idea she was presenting. It was her identity, reshaped by years of longing for authenticity. With every keystroke, she felt more anchored to the woman she wanted to become. After sending the email, she stood up, the faint whir of the air conditioner humming in the background. Jamie took a moment to breathe, envisioning the imminent encounters with her colleagues, specifically the executives who occupied their glass-walled boardroom. How would they react? Would they recognize the merit in her hybrid vision, where corporate structure met artistic innovation? The meeting was set for late afternoon, allowing her some time to gather her thoughts, but the minutes hung heavy. Jamie transformed her desk into a workshop of innovation, laying out charts and slides, her childhood sketches alongside market analyses. It created a dialogue between the innocent fantasies of her youth and the hard realities of her corporate environment. Each element she prepared, from pie charts to inspirational quotes, represented not just her concepts but a lifetime of unfulfilled dreams. She felt the pressure of their expectations looming above her like storm clouds, yet amidst the weight, she found her resolve deepening. As she entered the boardroom, the surface-level polish of the sleek wood contrasted sharply with the turmoil inside her. Jamie initiated small talk while waiting for the executives to settle in, all too aware of how her voice trembled slightly. Each casual conversation felt like both a distraction and a rehearsal, a way to ease herself into the impending vulnerability. Finally, the time arrived. Jamie cleared her throat, nerves vibrating down to her fingertips. As she began her presentation, she spoke with intention, embracing the strength that had flickered to life within her. I believe we can bridge the gap between our corporate responsibilities and the creative potential that lies within us, she declared, words rising with confidence. She sensed their scrutiny, measuring the sincerity in her pitch against the backdrop of cautious skepticism. In the unfolding dialogue that ensued, Jamie sharpened her arguments, inviting questions and engaging with their concerns. The executives pushed back, their resistance born not of hostility but of a different kind of fear, the fear of deviation from the expected path. She felt the urgent stakes rising at every inquiry, each probe igniting fire within her. One of the executives, Robert, known for his stern pragmatism, leaned forward, his brow furrowed at her proposal. But how do you propose we balance this creative direction with our bottom line? It sounds risky. Jamie swallowed, acutely aware that their doubts mirrored her own insecurities. Innovation requires risk, Robert. But we can quantify that risk by integrating measurable metrics alongside creative projects. This synergy could redefine our market position, she countered, her voice steadying as she spoke. The discussion brimmed with tension, she could feel the crests and troughs of possibility. But then a flicker of something that felt almost like kindness crossed Robert's face. You seem passionate, Jamie. But passion alone doesn't drive results. She could see it clearly now, a challenge, a gauntlet thrown down. Jamie leaned in, embracing the confrontation and locking eyes with him. And neither does complacency. I'm willing to take this leap, but I need your support. Let us explore this together. It was a pivotal moment. As conversations volleyed between perspectives, a shift began to occur, slow, almost imperceptible yet profound. Jamie's voice rose above hesitations, straddling the divide between her past corporate safety and the boldness of a dream not yet realized. As she left the boardroom, the ambivalence still lingered. Had she effectively pushed through the barriers? Or had she merely stirred the pot further without capturing the essential buy-in? But as she listened to the echoes of her own voice arguing for the vision, Jamie felt something new unfurling inside her. Perhaps it was more than just confrontation, it was reclaiming her narrative. She had stepped forward, unearthing her competence and embracing the risk, and with it came a newfound clarity. As she prepared to exit the company, Jamie realized she stood at a precipice, knowing the journey ahead required her to fully harness that courage and resolve. Today had merely been the beginning. She was going to challenge herself to extend further into the unknown and deeper into who she was meant to be. With a spark igniting her inclination toward creativity and collaboration, Jamie began to formulate the next steps. The conversations in the boardroom had awakened something waiting to be nurtured, and as she walked out of the building, her mind raced with possibilities, lighter yet stronger than before. What would the next challenge demand of her? Would the executives rally behind her vision, or would she have to dig even deeper? Jamie couldn't help but wonder how far she was willing to go to fulfill not just the vision for her career, but for her entire essence. The path ahead twisted steeply and uncertainly, yet for every doubt that shadowed her, Jamie felt the exhilarating call of transformation echoing in her mind. The next morning, Jamie awakened refreshed yet restless. The echoes of yesterday's boardroom clash vibrated through her mind, fueling a chaotic mix of anticipation and doubt. Her coffee machine gurgled its morning symphony, but the aromatic notes couldn't mask the pulsing fear in her heart. Today, she faced a different battleground, the looming presence of a crucial follow-up meeting with Robert and the executive team. The office buzzed as always, but Jamie felt isolated in her thoughts. Walking through the familiar corridors, she began to question her own resolve. The stakes had escalated overnight. She had presented a vision that was daring, perhaps too daring. Would they embrace her ideas or dismiss her as an idealist? As she settled at her desk, she reviewed her notes, meticulously refining her proposals while grappling with the echoes of Robert's challenge. Passion alone doesn't drive results. She took a deep breath and glanced at the hastily drawn sketches scattered around her workspace. Each one was a piece of her heart, a testament to her unwavering commitment to intertwining creativity with strategy. Yet, they also felt like fragile glass, waiting to shatter at the slightest tension. The question lingered: how could she transform passion into a measurable impact? With an urgency building within her, Jamie logged onto her computer. She researched case studies where innovation had not only succeeded but thrived in cautious corporate environments, with verifiable outcomes and metrics. As she transcribed these insights, a blueprint began forming. Her initial ideas blended seamlessly with substantive data, creating a narrative that she could defend with conviction. Her phone buzzed, jolting her focus. It was Mark, checking in. As she recounted the events of the prior day, Jamie found her voice growing steadier, the fear lessening its grip. "You know," Mark said, after listening, "you have to remember, you're not just fighting against their skepticism. You're also fighting for a change you believe in. That's powerful." His words struck a chord, igniting the embers of self-belief she sought to fan. They transformed from mere comforting phrases to a spark of action. Harnessing his encouragement, Jamie made an impulsive decision. She would take a calculated risk by inviting Robert to lunch instead of waiting for the meeting. The thought of a one-on-one discussion felt daunting, yet liberating, a chance to humanize her vision outside the sterile confines of the boardroom. That afternoon, they met at a small cafe with outdoor seating, an oasis amid the bustling city. The sun warmed her skin, yet Jamie felt cold inside, grappling with the weight of her purpose. As they shared their meals, she steered the conversation towards not just the proposal, but also to Robert as a person. She realized that to captivate him, she needed to understand him, his fears, values, ambitions. With quiet intensity, she shared her journey, painting a picture of how her artistic background had revealed a deeper understanding of market trends and customer engagement. Robert listened, not with the rigid exterior of a CEO but as a man genuinely contemplating innovation. Slowly, the rigid barriers between them began to blur. Then it happened. As they discussed the intersections of creativity and corporate strategy, Jamie noticed a shift in Robert's demeanor. It was subtle, a slight softening of his features, but it was there. "You bring a different perspective," he admitted candidly, "one that we could explore." Flush with hope, she seized the moment. "Together, we could develop a framework where creativity and profitability exist side by side. It would take courage, but I believe the rewards could be substantial." Robert raised an eyebrow, a sign of intrigue mixed with skepticism. "And the metrics? What do you envision?" As Jamie outlined her approach to integrate creative initiatives with quantifiable outcomes, she felt the tension within her dissolve. The conversation pulsated, flowing into broader discussions that interwove their personal and professional visions. She was no longer just defending her proposal, she was transforming their dialogue into a collaborative exploration. As they finished lunch, Robert leaned in, the shadows of doubt momentarily cast aside. "Let us see what we can devise. Create a small pilot project to start. If it succeeds, we can present it to the rest of the board." Walking back to the office, Jamie felt lighter, as if she had shed layers of fear and doubt. She was evolving, recognizing her power not only to present ideas but to inspire tangible change. Yet, she knew this was merely a stepping stone. The true battle lay ahead with the rest of the executives. Would they embrace the collaborative spirit she had begun to foster, or would the old guard resist vehemently? With fresh determination coursing through her veins, Jamie resolved to prepare a comprehensive proposal for the pilot project. The journey was gaining momentum, but with each victory came the realization that the climb toward true transformation required relentless effort. Would the executives welcome her vision with open arms, or would skepticism prevail, forcing Jamie to confront setbacks down the road? The tension grew, as each heartbeat sounded a warning, a reminder that the real journey was just beginning. The moment Jamie returned to her desk, the once warm glow of sunlight began to feel overcast by shadows of uncertainty. The lunch with Robert had ignited a newfound sense of possibility, yet the potential obstacles loomed larger than ever. She stared at her sketches, now interlaced with numerical frameworks and strategic analyses. How would the rest of the executive team react to the blend of creativity and profitability she envisioned? Sitting at her desk, Jamie was acutely aware of her heartbeat drumming in her ears, a constant reminder that this project would be assessed not by vision alone, but by its ability to meet bottom-line demands. She stood up, pacing the room while formulating her next steps. The executives represented a myriad of personalities, some staunchly traditional, others cynical. Convincing them to adopt a pilot project required more than passion, it required a well-crafted narrative that conquered their skepticism. Jamie fired off an email to Robert, thanking him for the lunch and reiterating her commitment to creating a compelling pilot proposal. As she pressed send, her heart raced with both excitement and trepidation. This email was a signal of her dedication, a commitment to harness their brief connection into something substantial. She knew she needed clarity and structure, so she began to draft her proposal, carefully selecting every word. She laid out the key metrics, potential risks, and benefits, conscious that the presentation would be pivotal in showcasing her competency. Yet, as she worked, a familiar wave of self-doubt washed over her. What if her plans faltered? What if she failed to persuade them? Determined to steel herself against these fears, Jamie sought out the input of analysts within the company. Her strategy was to gather data that would elevate her plan from focus groups to case studies demonstrating the relationship between innovation and profitability. Each piece of feedback they provided became a tiny bead of strength strung into her evolving proposal. With each meeting, she felt herself becoming more capable, more assertive, and with a clearer vision. As the week passed, Jamie's proposal began to morph into a living document. The dark whirlpool of self-doubt began to diminish, replaced by a reservoir of resolve. Mark's unwavering support helped as he reminded her of past victories, how she had often stood at the precipice of doubt only to leap into successful ventures. Then came the morning of the executive meeting. She arrived at the conference room, her heart almost jumping out of her chest. The air felt thick with anticipation. The board sat around the polished table, their faces a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Jamie had rehearsed her speech numerous times, yet the gravity of the moment still rattled her confidence. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, determined to project conviction. "Thank you for your time," she began, her voice steady as she launched into her proposal. She meticulously outlined her vision of the pilot project, weaving her strategic insights into a tapestry of creative innovation. For every question they posed about costs, risks, and timelines, Jamie's responses were quickened by the knowledge she'd accumulated over the past week. She felt the room shift with her. The executives were gradually drawn into her narrative, and she sensed their interest peaking at her references to data and market trends. However, as she prepared to conclude, the tension sharpened. Susan, a senior executive known for her critical scrutiny, posed a direct challenge. "And what makes you think this would work in our conservative market? Creativity doesn't necessarily translate to profit." A chill ran through Jamie, but she realized this was the moment to summon her inner fortitude. Because innovation does not exist in isolation, it's about understanding our customers' evolving needs. We won't just be implementing creative ideas, we'll be initiating a dialogue with our target audience. The room held its breath. Jamie's words hung suspended in the air, carrying weight and urgency. Could this be the moment she'd always envisioned, even if it was sparking a battle in the face of fierce resistance? As the conversation continued, the clash of viewpoints felt electric yet fraught with the ambiguity of potential outcomes. Was she truly their beacon of change, or was she merely spinning her wheels in an unrelenting machine of tradition? The stakes felt incredibly high, but with every response she crafted, Jamie was rekindling her belief that this change was worth fighting for. As the meeting progressed, she could sense the tide beginning to turn, yet, amid this sense of victory, an unsettling doubt began to creep back. What if the outcome was not what she anticipated? What if they rejected her vision despite her best efforts? With unresolved tension hanging in the air, Jamie prepared to face the ultimate question. This could be the juncture that either propelled her career or sabotaged her aspirations. "Can you show us tangible proof of your concepts?" Robert's voice boomed across the room, cutting through the tension. And in that moment, Jamie felt herself at a crossroads. The battle was only beginning, and she would need to summon every ounce of resilience to navigate the challenges ahead. Would she rise to meet this challenge head-on, or would the doubts that had plagued her return to hold her back? The stakes were impossibly high, and the next move would determine everything. The significance of Robert's question echoed in Jamie's mind, reverberating like a metallic gong. Tangible proof. The phrase weighed on her, a challenge that pointedly highlighted the gap between her vision and her current resources. This wasn't just about presenting ideas anymore, it was about tangible results, data that could translate her creative ambition into boardroom currency. As the intensity of the moment pressed down, she felt a surge of clarity. Looking up from her notes, she met Robert's scrutinizing gaze. There was an opportunity here, she realized. The demand for evidence was a doorway to showcase her dedication, her strategic thinking. Carefully, she reached down and pulled out a case study that hadn't yet made its way into her proposal. It was a recent success from a similar company that had made bold creative shifts, leading to a spike in both engagement and profits. Actually, Jamie regathered her composure, her voice steadier than before. "I can share a relevant case study that validates the potential impact of creative initiatives even in the most conservative markets." The board leaned in, curiosity piqued. As she shared the details, weaving statistics with storytelling, the atmosphere shifted slightly. Executives who had sat back with skeptical expressions were now leaning forward, listening with more intention. Jamie could feel the stirrings of interest growing, and her confidence blossomed in the moment. It was as if every word she spoke was disarming the barriers that had closed off the executives' minds to her ideas. However, she knew the resistance wouldn't dissipate completely. Susan's reaction was a barometer. Jamie had seen her scrutinize ideas before, and she was not about to relent now. "That's admirable that they had success," Susan countered coolly, "but this is a different environment. I still question whether our clients would respond similarly." The walls rose again, but Jamie was no longer intimidated. A realization struck her: this was less about changing their minds through evidence, and more about changing the narrative of what was possible within their organization. What if, instead of viewing this as a risk, we see it as an evolution? Understanding our clients' shifts and needs places us ahead of the curve, not behind it. We can pilot this on a small scale, mitigate risk, gather insights, and adapt all along the way. This isn't a leap off the cliff, it's a measured step forward. She laid out the pilot in greater detail, focusing on how it would allow the company to test waters in low-stakes environments. Jamie could almost feel the executives recalibrating their perceptions, considering the potential for growth rather than merely fearing change. With every second that ticked by, Jamie's heartbeat steadied. This was her moment to establish herself as a leader, to seize the uncertainty swirling around her and transform it into opportunity. As she wrapped up her presentation, she made a bold choice. If this initiative proves successful, we will have established a new paradigm for creativity and profitability in our market. If it doesn't work as we hope, we can explore why and what we can learn. But I firmly believe this is worth the risk. Silence enveloped the room after she finished. Their expressions were inscrutable. Jamie's heart raced again, but now it was mixed with anticipation, the thrill of the unknown. She had thrown everything into the conversation, now she awaited their verdict. "Let us discuss it further and come back for a vote next week," Robert finally said, breaking the tension. As they filed out, Jamie felt both elation and trepidation. The meeting had turned her doubts into determination, yet uncertainty remained. The thrill of potential victory was tinged with anxiety. Would her proposal survive scrutiny in their next meeting? Would she dig deeper into her creativity to pull together further evidence? She felt the creative fire ignite once more within her, as she realized she'd have to dive into new territories of research and ideation. Working beyond her comfort zone was now a necessity. As she sat down at her desk, pen poised over paper, a new realization crystallized in her mind. The journey was far from complete. To truly see her vision become a reality, Jamie would need to face not only external challenges but internal hesitations as well. What could she discover about herself as she pushed through these barriers? The day had ended, but the next stage of her professional transformation was just beginning. Would she successfully harness her unearthed creativity and strategy to convince her team, or would doubt once again threaten to undermine her success? The following week loomed ahead, harboring the answers she desperately sought. The week rolled in with a relentless pace, and each day blurred into the next, filled with sleepless nights, endless research, and countless notes. Jamie found herself sitting hunched at her desk, the glow of her computer screen illuminating her weary features. Though the pressure mounted, she adopted the mantra that echoed in her mind: evidence, evidence, evidence. This was her battle, a quest for validation that would turn her vision into reality. Every evening, she pored over reports from other companies' successes and pitfalls, sifting through case studies to extract relevant insights. The task consumed her, morphing into an obsessive determination to arm herself with as much data as possible. Each statistic pieced together a mosaic of potential success, each anecdote birthed ideas that flowed like water. Jamie began to realize that she craved more than just acceptance. She sought to unlock the door to innovation itself, yet, lurking behind this drive was an insidious voice that niggled at the corners of her mind: doubt. Would this be enough? She recalled each critical expression from the board. Susan's skepticism weighed heavily on her resolve, reminding her that mere numbers wouldn't change ingrained organizational mindsets. Jamie began exploring her emotional landscape, grappling with her fear of failure and its consequences. What if her ambition to lead to transformation led to nothing but frustration and defeat? With the hours fleeting, Jamie made a conscious decision. She wouldn't just gather data, she'd redefine how she perceived herself. She wasn't merely a champion for creative initiatives, she was a conduit for change. Taking a deep breath, she pivoted her focus. Rather than be consumed by fear of judgment, she sought empowerment. How could she frame her suggestions to ignite a passion for risk and experimentation among the board members? Armed with this new perspective, she crafted a presentation that was both informational and inspiring. She wove her findings into a narrative that emphasized the human element, a story of adaptability in an ever-changing landscape. As she built the slides, she imagined the board not just as executives but as potential allies in her vision for a creative renaissance at the company. When she arrived at the office for the big meeting, Jamie felt the butterflies in her stomach, an adrenaline rush that fueled both anxiety and excitement. She focused on her breathing, reminding herself that this was the moment she had sacrificed so much to prepare for. As she walked into the conference room, she had to blink back the self-doubt that threatened to surface. It was time to embody the leader she longed to be. The room was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Robert smiled encouragingly, while Susan's expression remained inscrutable. As Jamie began her presentation, she spoke with newfound conviction. She shared not just numbers, but potential, showing the board a fragmented reflection of what could be if they took that leap of faith together. Questions began to emerge as she laid out scenarios and implications of her proposals. They were both challenging and inquisitive, pushing against her narrative. Yet, rather than retreating, she leaned in, seeing each inquiry as an opportunity to reinforce her vision. The shift was palpable. Jamie transcended from merely defending her ideas to actively engaging in a dialogue focused on possibilities. The time to innovate is now, she concluded powerfully. What we decide today will shape our future trajectory. Let us transform our narrative together. As silence hung in the air, Jamie felt an electric current of uncertainty. Would they rally behind her? Would they embrace the creative shift she envisioned? She had opened the door wide, but whether they stepped through remained an unanswered question, a test of her newfound resolve. The decisive moment was upon her. No longer a passive follower, she had entered into the fray as a leader. But as she stood there, the fear of rejection loomed larger than ever. Would her leap of faith resonate, or would it fracture the board's hesitance even further? The stakes were monumental, and Jamie knew this would either cement her place in the company's trajectory or send her spiraling back to square one. Moments stretched as she awaited their reactions. The silence felt like an eternity, and she wondered, with a sinking feeling, how this would ultimately play out. The silence broke like a fragile bubble, as Robert cleared his throat, tension dispelling with the sound. "Thank you, Jamie. You've given us a lot to think about." The sincerity in his voice held a flicker of optimism, but Susan's gaze, cold and scrutinizing, pierced deeper into Jamie's composure. "Interesting proposals, Jamie," Susan interjected, "but ideas without tangible application are just dreams. How do you intend to implement this?" The question, both sharp and expected, served as a reminder that numbers alone hadn't transformed anything yet. Jamie felt her pulse quicken. How could she convince them of her vision without resorting to more data? Each heartbeat seemed to echo Susan's skepticism, but Jamie steadied her resolve. Drawing on her newfound clarity, she drew a deep breath and leaned into the confrontation. "Implementation doesn't mean I have all the answers today," Jamie replied, feeling the weight lift slightly off her shoulders as her voice found its strength. "It means cultivating a culture where creativity thrives and is backed by learning from both successes and failures, a place where every team member feels empowered to share their ideas." Robert nodded, appearing genuinely interested. "How do we foster that kind of environment?" There it was, the opening she needed. Jamie's mind raced through her research on innovative workplaces. She articulated a framework aimed at instilling a spirit of collaboration among teams, providing avenues for experimentation, and implementing iterative processes. As she outlined her vision, she witnessed subtle shifts in expressions around the room. What had once seemed like a wall of indifference began to soften, ever so slightly, yet a nagging worry crept back in. Susan's arms crossed tightly, and the challenge she posed loomed again. "That sounds lofty, but can you quantify the potential risks involved? Change can backfire, and we cannot afford to compromise our current standing." It was a sharp jab, targeting the very foundation of Jamie's confidence. She initially faltered, contemplating Susan's words against the backdrop of her own ambition. But instead of faltering, a realization ignited within her. Stasis was the true risk, she recognized. Jamie turned to face Susan, confidence radiating from her posture as she replied, "Every meaningful risk carries uncertainty, but doing nothing speaks volumes about complacency. We have the opportunity to redefine our position in the industry, to reshape our identity. I believe we stand to gain more by embracing calculated risks, a necessary step in today's dynamic market." A tense dialogue followed, the board members engaging with increased energy. It was no longer merely Jamie presenting ideas, she was part of an exchange, a collaborator in a conversation ripe with potential. The questions kept coming, but they transformed into explorations. How could they engage the teams? What metrics would signify progress? How could they frame their failures as learning experiences? As the discussion flowed, Jamie felt the doubts from earlier recede. The moments of vulnerability she'd experienced were morphing into something purposeful. Every challenge they posed fortified her resolve. The impromptu debate sharpened her thoughts, forcing her to articulate her concepts more clearly. She was harnessing the energy in the room, rewriting her own narrative as she fought not just for change, but for belonging. After the meeting, as conversations continued to buzz among the board members, Jamie stepped aside, allowing herself a moment to breathe. She felt both exhausted and invigorated, as if she'd shed an invisible weight. But doubts still hovered like clouds threatening rain. What if this was just momentary enthusiasm, a fleeting spark that might not catch fire? What if Susan's skepticism would resurface and extinguish it? As Jamie gathered her notes, Robert approached her, a warm smile on his face. "You did well today, Jamie. The board needs more voices like yours. Don't doubt yourself. You could truly be the change agent we need." As she allowed his words to sink in, a flicker of hope ignited. Perhaps she had turned a corner, forging a path to leadership she once only imagined. Yet, the thought of her next challenge loomed over her. The conversation had taken a turn, awakening aspirations she hadn't dared to entertain fully. With renewed determination, Jamie left the conference room, aware that this was merely the beginning. The next steps wouldn't be easy. Cultural change is a slow process fraught with resistance. But one thing was clear, she was prepared to fight for her vision. The real battle lay ahead, and to win, she would need allies beyond the boardroom. Who among the team would rally behind her? Would they embrace her call for creativity? The journey of transformation had begun, but how it would ultimately unfold was still unwritten. Jamie Thompson stood before her colleagues in the very conference room that once felt like an impenetrable fortress, now infused with a sense of possibility. The executive board had shown a flicker of interest in her innovative proposal, a seed of opportunity she believed could bloom into a true transformation of the company's approach. Today would not merely signify another meeting, it was the culmination of her promise to herself, that she would embrace her authentic self and cultivate change. As days turned into weeks, Jamie had dedicated herself to not just the pilot project but to empowering her team around her. She diligently worked with cross-functional groups, harnessing the unique strengths of each member. Together, they experimented, integrating creativity with metrics, fostering a culture where every voice was valued, and where risks were seen as stepping stones toward advancement. The initial pilot was launched, testing the waters of authentic engagement with consumers in tangible ways. Jamie poured her heart into every aspect, untethering herself from the restraints of doubt that once plagued her. Feedback from early consumers was overwhelmingly positive, validating her vision for creating emotional connections through their brand. With each milestone achieved, Jamie felt the shackles of insecurity loosen further, replaced by an empowering confidence that resonated deeply within her. Soon, the excitement buzzed within the walls of the office. The project wasn't without its challenges, disagreements arose, and certain executives resisted the cultural shift Jamie envisioned. Yet this time, she embraced confrontation. She invited criticism as a pathway for growth, leveraging feedback to adapt their strategies without compromising her core belief in authenticity. In a particularly fierce meeting, Jamie passionately defended the necessity of creative risk-taking. "This isn't about selling a product, it's about building relationships," she declared, her voice unwavering. Surrounded by eyes that once scrutinized but now held curiosity, she realized she had transformed from merely presenting ideas to engaging in crucial conversations. She had become their advocate, their agent of change. Her journey was not without reward. Recognition came when the company won a significant marketing award for the very pilot project she had championed. The celebration resonated deeply, validating not just the project but also her personal evolution. Standing before her peers, Jamie accepted the award, her heart swelling with pride. She had not just altered the company's trajectory, she had reclaimed her voice, yet even as accolades poured in, she remained grounded. This success had not stemmed from merely striving for recognition, it had emerged from her willingness to confront her past insecurities, her most profound fears. Mark, witnessing her journey, shared in the triumph, solidifying their friendship and rebirth of collaboration. Ushering their childhood dreams into reality, they began exploring future projects together, a renewed spark igniting their ambition side by side. Now filled with solid confidence, Jamie turned her focus to mentorship, guiding less experienced colleagues to unlock their potential. She organized workshops that invited open dialogues about creative practice in corporate settings. She wanted every individual to recognize their worth, just as she had fought to claim her place. Jamie had transformed her early fears into a distinctive strength, becoming an advocate for authenticity and creativity within her industry. As she looked out over the bustling office, the very place that once evoked dread, she now felt a sense of belonging. Jamie had forged a respected position, not just as a marketer but champion of a cultural revolution within the corporation. Her journey was one of deep fulfillment, an intricate dance between self-discovery, creativity, and authentic leadership. With a heart full of purpose, she took a deep breath, reflecting on the vibrant life shifting beneath her, the culmination of sacrifices and struggles, illuminating a clear path toward a future she had always dreamed of. The moment had arrived. She was not merely advocating change. She had become the change. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.